And we are live. Conversations with influencers. Hey, Alejandro Tornato here, coming directly from Beaufort, Georgia. And as I said before, and I posted, several times, I am so thrilled every single time that I have the opportunity to do another episode of Conversations with Influencers, because for a couple of reasons. I enjoyed being surrounded with people who can elevate me to the next level in my development. And that's why I have these conversations with influencers. And also is because I want to introduce these influencers to all of you, because they have so many great ideas and insights and concepts that that they add tremendous value to your life journey. And today I cannot be happier, and I'm going to bring him. I have to go to the green room, to bring him, my dear friend, Dennis LaRue Jr. And how are you doing, Dennis? It gives me so much pleasure. For a long time, I wanted to have a conversation with you because I consider you a true leader, a true thinker, and a true influencer. And I know that this conversation today is going to add tremendous value to the people who are joining us live, and not only them, but the ones who are going to pick up the replay at a later time. So how are you doing?
Alejandro, thank you so much. I'm honored. I'm honored to be here. And I noticed the sign behind you. Welcome to the path less traveled. I love it. I love that. I'm excited to be a part of being on the path with you. And I'm excited about the conversation we're going to have. And I'm honored by your introduction. And I can't wait to see where this conversation goes.
I tell you, sometimes we're going to be traveled along the big white highway, and that is good, and we can go at a higher speed. But sometimes we are going to go through those little detours and taking some other, because I think that those detours sometimes, or most of the times, are the ones who are going to enhance our life experience. It's good to go at full speed, but sometimes it's good to slow down and to think and to reflect and to even sometimes to pause in life to say, where are we and what are we doing? And is there a better way to do this or to tackle that problem? So you are absolutely right. We never know the direction that we're going to go, but let me be clear that we have a direction. We are, and the direction basically is to really add value to the people who are listening to us. Now, let me just say that I have known Dennis, for quite a while. Dennis is a certified speaker, executive coach, and trainer. He was certified through the John Maxwell organization and team, and he's very active in doing that, adding value to people. Okay, and enhancing people's lives. I said it all the time. I consider myself an agent of change and transformation in people's lives, and I know that Dennis resonates with that, because he is one agent of change himself. And Dennis, he's the founder of LDR. And you might be wondering, what is LDR? Well, let me tell you. That's a secret that now is going to be revealed. Leaders develop relationships. And now let me ask you, I mean, just to begin with, let me ask you a question. I mean, when you thought of a title for your business, and you said leaders develop relationships, why did you pay particular importance to the word relationships? I mean, what is, because I mean, you could have said leaders are influencers, or leaders impact other people, or leaders enhance, but you said leaders develop relationships, and that is very true. But what does that mean to you?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, I served in the Air Force for 23 years. And so one of the things that I learned in my military career is we love acronyms and abbreviations. And so whenever I saw LDR on a performance report, you know, we had to capture in our annual appraisals, we had to capture 365 days worth of work in 13 lines.
Wow.
And so we abbreviated and everything. So every report I ever saw, LDR stood for leader, always.
Okay.
And then we make acronyms out of those abbreviations. So LDR for me meant leaders develop relationships, because two things. When we think of leaders develop relationships, you know, we've heard John say this: if a leader thinks he's a leader and has no followers, he's only out for a walk, right? So a leader's got to, in order to be a leader, you got to have relationships. But also, the one thing that I add to that is leaders develop relationships, but the number one relationship leaders need to develop is with themselves first, because you can't give what you don't have, right?
That's exactly right. I think that when it comes to the topic of leadership, before someone is, I think, fully qualified, in my opinion, fully qualified to begin leading other people, he has to first of all and foremost, he has to be able to lead himself or herself. I mean, you cannot begin leading others if you cannot lead who you are as a person. I mean, if you can give, before you can give a command to somebody else, you have to be able to give a command to yourself and follow through with that command, okay, to have self-leadership and self-discipline. And at the other on the other hand of the spectrum, we have to talk about servant leadership, because leadership is not just barking orders randomly because you have a title. And just earlier today, I mean, I was on another Facebook Live, and we talk a little bit about positional leadership. I mean, that's the first level of leadership of the 5 levels of leadership through John Maxwell. And positional leadership is not a leadership that is going to last very long if you just depend exclusively on that level. You have to keep moving to other levels. So in your case, let me ask you, were you always, when did it start in your life, this passion for leadership and learning more about leadership and becoming a leader yourself?
Wow. I think the passion that came with leadership, I can remember, you know, being named captain of different sports teams when I played, but even during that time in high school and all that, I didn't think about leadership from that perspective. When I joined the Air Force and began to read, they gave us a book after you go through your basic training and all of that. They give you a book that kind of covers the professionalism in the Air Force. So it covers history and it covers different things about the Air Force that every Air Force member needs to know. And there was a chapter on leadership, and I remember that, and it just really gripped my soul. I mean, I just read it and was inspired. Now, reading some of the other stuff didn't inspire me, but when I read that, it really just tugged at my heart. And I remember seeing a quote by John Maxwell in that, which is what's trajected me to where I am with being certified by John. But I remember reading that quote and saying, "Who's this John Maxwell guy?" And so, I got onto a search engine and typed up John Maxwell, and I saw that he was an author, and I listened to him on a radio broadcast. I was driving home from work one day, and he happened to be on a radio show and promoting one of his earlier books.
Now, do you remember? Do you remember what that quote that spurred that interest in you was?
You know what? I don't remember the quote itself. I've read so many of them now; they all kind of blur together.
Okay.
It was probably something along the lines of "Everything rises and falls with leadership." I'm almost positive it was something along those lines.
Okay.
And so from that, I looked him up. I listened to him. I realized, I'm a person of faith, and I heard that he was a pastor for 25 years. And here's what I know: if you do something for 25 years, you don't stink at it. You're probably really good. You don't last that long.
That's right. After 25 years doing something, I believe that you have to be a little bit good at it.
Exactly. And so I bought his books. Now my faith at that time was different from his as far as flavor of ice cream.
Okay.
But I read the books. I'm like, this is perfect. This is what I need. This is applicable. And I just started growing from there. And being where I was always supervising people. I was in charge of programs. I was making decisions at very high levels within the Air Force and being involved in things. So his books on leadership really just set me off on a trajectory throughout my Air Force career and allowed me to do things and be a part of things that most people in my rank don't get to do.
Okay. Did you get, now, when did you certified with the organization?
2015, right after I retired from the Air Force.
Okay, in 2015. Did you get an opportunity, or did you get opportunities to really share that leadership content within the Air Force or within the Armed Forces, or it was too late? I mean, you were already retired, so you didn't go back.
Well, funny enough is because I was reading John's books, I was giving them away long before I joined the John Maxwell team. I was buying people in my sphere books. I remember one book in particular, the 360-degree leader.
Okay. Because
where I worked, I wasn't the senior ranking member ever in my career. I was always somewhere in the middle. And so that book really helped me influence people that outranked me and to make a difference at the table when normally I was setting up the room and scheduling the table for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got my boss, one of my bosses one time, I got her to read the book on a plane ride. She was fine. I said, read this while you're on the plane. Just scan it. I think it's a great book we need to have. And you know what she did? She came back. She bought cases of it. She bought it for everybody in the organization and set up a mastermind group, which I didn't know what that was at the time. She didn't either, but then set up a special 6-week group for key influencers to go through the book.
Now,
talking about 2008 when this happened.
Now talking about influence, it's we never know by the actions that we take who we are going to influence and what would be the reach of that influence. But it's great, and so you certified in 2015, and so. What happened? How did your life change or got transformed as a result of being and begin to absorb this new transformational content into your life, not just from the standpoint and perspective of leadership, but from a personal growth, development, becoming the very best version of yourself. Trying to impact other people, even within the confines of your family. How did you change as a result of this?
Wow. You know, being a part of it, um, what really transformed me is I've always been somebody that is I've always focused on self growth and self development. Uh,
Mm.
I have been doing something to develop myself every day, whether it's reading or whatever, for at least 30 years. We're coming up on 30 years of where I've really focused intentionally on developing myself each day.
And hold on, let me just break. Sorry for interrupting you, but for those who are watching, let me just share with you something that I heard it so many times through John Maxwell and others is leaders are readers. And if you look behind Dennis, I mean, you can see what it is. I mean, he is. I can tell just not even knowing him, but I can tell that he's a leader because he is a reader, and you can see that that's the symbol behind him. I'm sorry for interrupting you on that.
No, you're good. That's a great point. I love reading. I have been a voracious reader ever since I was a kid, but my reading each day now for 30 years has been very intentional. Sometimes it's topic related, leadership related, but I'm always reading something.
Mm.
And it's something I do every day. You know, John talks about his rule of five. Well, that's
Yeah.
one of my rule of five. Every day I read. That's one of them. And so part of that growth development, getting back to your question with John, is what I discovered joining the John Maxwell team. What I discovered that really helped me was there were more people like me out there. I mean, I remember being in the room and I just being around people from 160 nations, and there's 33,000 coaches now.
Mm.
And when I joined, we were just hitting about the 10,000 mark, 5,000 mark, 10,000 mark, in that range. But I still remember thinking to myself, these are my people. These are the people I've been looking for. They get me. There was just, the energy was just incredible. But the transformative part for me was the bigger picture. I remember when John Maxwell started talking about transforming nations, where 30 country presidents
Yeah.
have reached out to him and said, John, bring your leadership to my country, transform my nation. Not just the rich getting richer, not just the government level, not the business, but everybody.
Mm.
And I remember in tears saying, that's me. I want to be a part of that. And I got to go with him to Paraguay the very first time. Talk about transformation.
Well, I mean, you went to Paraguay the very first time. Um, I didn't because I certified in, I think, February of 2016,
Okay.
but I got to go to Costa Rica just maybe a couple of years ago or something.
Mhm.
And uh, what an experience is to go, like you said. I found my tribe. I found my people, because it's amazing. It didn't matter who you talk to.
Mhm.
We are all thinking, it's not that we are thinking exactly the same or we are just carbon copies. I mean, that's not the case.
Right.
But when it comes to leadership, when it comes to adding value, when it comes to helping people, when it comes to enhancing people's experiences in life, when it comes to sharing commonality of values and virtues and characteristics, we are all in the same boat.
Yes, absolutely. Just to, add some flavor to that, the Paraguay trip. I'll never forget this as long as I live. We were at a hospital, and we were with the lead medical administrator for the country of Paraguay.
Mm.
And so we're teaching values, doing the value-based roundtables,
Yes.
and also reproducing facilitators. And I'll never forget, we were at the break, and her name is Carolina, and she came up to me at the break, and she put her hands on my shoulders, and she looked me dead in the eyes, and she said, in beautiful English, she said to me, Dennis, you are the answer to my dream. that still wakes me up at night when I think about it. It wakes me up because that's what we live for. That's
Mhm.
what we were designed to do. When we talk about leaders develop relationships,
Yeah,
you got to develop yourself first, but also it's reproducing that relationship in others. And we're here in America, and we take values for granted. I don't
Mhm.
think we do anymore.
Yeah,
I don't think we do anymore. But the fundamentals, if you don't get the fundamentals right, nothing else is going to stand.
that's right. And it's amazing. I always said, uh, words have tremendous power. The power of words. And
Hmm.
can you imagine? I mean, what that lady said to you, Dennis. You have
You are an answer to my
Okay. You
dream.
you are an answer to my dream. That I mean, it's not rocket science, but when you do something and it causes such an impact in other person's life, that you said, you did that for me. um, I tell you, it's only perhaps it's one person, but it fills you up. Not with that egocentric attitude that said, "Hey, listen, look at me, I am the best thing since sliced bread, look at this."
Exactly.
No, 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 no. But it gives you that spirit of humility that says, "Hey, listen, look at what I, in conjunction with this team, are able to do in a completely different country."
Hmm.
I mean, is that is the most fulfilling experience that anyone can take.
Amen. And I cried my eyes out. I remember going back to my room that night after just an amazing day and being so overwhelmed. I locked my roommate was asleep. I went to the bathroom. I cried my eyes out. I cried my eyes out because
Yeah.
isn't that what we live for? Not living for that person to tell you, but the living for that moment where you have made such a difference in somebody's life that you realize, you know what? This is what I was made to do. This is what I was designed to. It was almost like being born again. It was like a second birthday, a third birthday, or a fourth birthday, or a
That's right.
renewal, if you will. And it's one of those spiritual benchmarks where you see the word behind me, inspire. That's exactly what happened there. Inspire isn't motivation. Motivation's external. But inspiration is the breath of God within you, bringing it out of you. It's going, breathing within, so it comes out.
That's exactly right, and that's why, I mean, it's amazing. But when people, uh, I used to say, I am a motivational speaker. I mean, for a very long time.
Hmm.
Um, Up until the moment that I heard someone say, motivation, you cannot, no matter how much of a desire you have to motivate another individual, you will never be able to do that, because motivation is something that is a personal decision, that it has to be born from inside you. You cannot motivate another to do absolutely anything unless that person wants to be motivated himself to do it.
Mm.
However, you can inspire people. You can inspire people, and you can give them that spirit of inspiration that says, "Hey, you can do better. You can do it. It doesn't matter how many times you make a mistake. It doesn't matter how many times you fail. It doesn't matter how many obstacles you find in the way. But you, as a human being, and as a spiritual being, you have been created with all the resources inside of you to do whatever you want to do and whatever you want to accomplish in your life. Is that your viewpoint?
Yes, I was just thinking, motivation eventually dies down.
Mm.
Motivation, the fire is kindled, it burns, but eventually dies out. Inspiration is a spark that starts within, and the flames burn forever.
That's exactly right.
The flames don't die between the two. Inspiration, the flame continues. Motivation, the flame dies over time.
That's exactly right. That now, before you you found, because I think that you found your purpose in what you're doing. I mean, right now, you know, there are so many people that they just want to avoid, perhaps, and I don't know why, but they want to avoid the topic or the subject of purpose. I mean, I think that a purpose is something that is being over spoken and over dealt with, and everybody talks about purpose and purpose and purpose, and you have to find a purpose. But I truly believe that if you don't find, and it doesn't matter when, I mean, there are some people that find their purpose very early in their lives, and that is a good thing, because then they have all their lives in front of them to begin acting on their purpose. Now, there are some others that find their purpose later on in life. But it doesn't matter when you find your purpose, as long as you find it and you begin acting on that purpose, then but most people, they don't want to they live life at such a pace that they do not take time every day to really think and reflect and say, hey, let's stop for a moment. What am I doing in life? Am I really doing what I love to do? Am I really making a difference in my life and in the lives of others? I mean, what? And until you don't take time to think that way, then you're going to keep, it's like life is going to be living in you, as opposed to you taking control and beginning to live your life in the direction that you want.
Yes, I live here in San Antonio, Texas, and we have SeaWorld here. And at SeaWorld, they have this water park. And in the water park, they have this kind of an island with a current that goes around it. And you can get into an inner tube, and the current just moves you around the inner tube.
I see. Okay.
And so it looks like paradise, and it feels like paradise. And you can stay there all day long. I literally love to go there, and I will do that. I will stay in that all day long. Now, finding your purpose, it's one thing to enjoy that for a day. But if I did that every day, I'm not living my life. I'm not living life. It's easy for us to get in the current and enjoy the paradise. But there's, a lot of times prison looks like paradise.
Yeah.
And it's easy to go with the flow. So from a purpose standpoint, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the speaker said this question, and I wrote it in my journal. So I got my journal. I always have it nearby. This is a great question to ask yourself on this idea of purpose. For people that are struggling with purpose, I hear about purpose, I don't know how to, here's a question that will, I think, help people clarify. There's two. This one is the one that stands out to me. What is the highest and best way that I serve human beings?
Wow.
What is the highest and best way that I serve human beings? That answers purpose. Or if you're in your business community and you're asking this question, here's another way of asking that question and getting some clarity. What's a problem that you see that is solvable that no one else is solving?
That's exactly right.
And I think those two questions will help you find purpose. And if that purpose is your family, then that's it. If it business, if it's politics, and fill in the 7 spheres of influence, 7 mountains, whatever they're called. But everybody's purpose is different. There are some people that are going to be going the same direction, but their purpose is different.
That's
And
exactly
there's
right.
nothing wrong with that. But to not take the time to find yours is, one day we're going to stand before our maker and he's going to ask you, I want to hear well done. I want to hear what he said. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I want to hear well done.
That's it. That's exactly right. Now, of course, we know that for the past few weeks, perhaps 2 months or even longer, I can't remember when it started. The whole world went into a kind of a whirlwind with COVID-19 and the virus and the pandemic and so forth. Mm-hmm. I don't think that it is behind us, although, I think that, it's still kind of a hanging there. But how did you navigate, those challenging weeks and challenging times? And what are some of the lessons that perhaps you learned? Because I don't know about you, but as far as I'm concerned, this was the very first time in my life that I have experienced a situation such as this one. And so what are some of the lessons that you learned? How did you maneuver and how did you grow as a person as a result of all of this that has been going on?
That's a great question, Alejandro. For as far as the virus goes, I spent 23 years in the Air Force, and there were times in my career where I had to practice being in isolation or being in an environment where worst case scenario happens. So from that standpoint of being told I have to wear a mask, I was grateful because I had to wear gas masks back then. So having to wear the mask that we had to wear was not that big of a deal from my perspective.
Okay.
Being in my house and being locked in my office with these books, okay, that didn't bother me either. I love reading.
Hey, listen, it didn't bother you. I think that it was even a blessing. It was a blessing that came to you.
It was. But what I also realized was I was going at such a breakneck speed in the things I was doing. And this was a season for me to get some great clarity, to get refocused, to get back into some habits that I had neglected, spent more reflective time, spent time with family, a lot of time with family during this time. My grandbabies have been here. As a matter of fact, they're probably here right now. And just being still. And I can remember just sitting back saying, okay, a lot of people are, some people are like, this is the time to ramp up their business. In my reflection time, I was told, stand still, just be still. Don't go out pursuing anything else. And a lot of people are going to say, you're crazy. Okay. That's okay. I'm doing what I knew to do, what I was told to do. And one of my strengths is my intuition. And so I'm going to trust my intuition on this. I spent too many years not trusting it, and it got me in a lot of trouble. it had me go back. If I could write a book, if I'd have listened to myself the first time, these are the things I would have accomplished. Be a great book. So I learned from that to sit back, get clarity, and it's okay to take a break. It's okay to listen. And it was also to kind of shake out the things that needed to be shaken in order for me to be positioned to move forward in where I need to go once this settles. From when I say settle, once the virus settles down some, there's still some seriousness in that. I know some people who who, if they got this virus, would be sincerely health compromised. So I don't doubt that at all. This season for me was a season for me to really spend a lot of time within to develop myself. Leaders develop relationships, and this was a time for serious self-development for me in so many areas, particularly my faith, really getting honed in on that, because for me, everything flows from that. If that is off, everything else about me is off.
And of course, I mean, in our lives, there has to be something, whether it is faith, whether it is family, relationships, but there has to be something that anchors us to a solid ground. Okay. It's good, I mean, to be floating and flying like eagles, I mean, on top of the mountains. But after we went for that flight, it's good to be anchored back down to a solid foundation, an unmovable foundation, a rock solid foundation, because otherwise, I mean, we are going to be all over the place. I mean, it's like a boat or a ship. I mean, if you take the rudder of the ship, I mean, the ship just goes anywhere. So we need that rudder, we need that direction, and that anchor that anchors to something solid.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what happened here for me is, some of the building I'd built had to be crumbled. My granddaughter loves to do this. I take blocks and I'll start stacking them, and she comes over and knocks them over, and I just go, "Oh no!" And she starts laughing, and it's so much fun. But that's what's happened in this season. There were some things that were being built that needed to be knocked over and get back to the foundation, repair the foundation, get back to it, so I can rebuild and make a more solid structure than what was built before.
That's exactly right. Now, one thing, for all of you, I mean, who are joining us and watching, one of the things that Dennis used to do, and I don't know, I mean, if you still do it, I'm sure that you do, is there was a segment that I used to watch and I loved it. It's called LaRue on the Street. LaRue on the Street. And sometimes, I mean, Mr. Dennis LaRue used to come, I mean, and it was dark because it was very early in the morning. I mean, I don't know at what time. I mean, he wakes up, and he just went into the street and he started videotaping and just sharing a powerful message. Now, do you still do that?
I do. I haven't done it in a few weeks, and the reason why was the whole recentering. It was that intuition said, "Okay, now's okay. Let's just Mom always said, if you don't have anything to say, then be quiet, right? If you don't have anything nice to say or have anything to say, then just be quiet." And so these last few weeks have been really reflective on me, and I've been out for a walk. I thought I would say, should I do a LaRue on the street? And I'd hear the voice say no. And I'm like, okay. So I'm still doing it and still going to do it, but I enjoy those because what I find is when you're exercising, there are certain things that each of us has that when we do it, we get inspiration, we get recharged. It kind of just releases all the junk in your mindset to allow you to get the new stuff. And so for me, walking, running, exercising is one of those for me. And so I would share some of those new thoughts immediately as I got them. None of that was scripted. None of LaRue on the Street is scripted. It was just straight in the moment, something that came to me. And I said, I got to share this with people and let it fly, so to speak.
Most of the time, I mean, is good sometimes, I mean, to prepare things and to script things. I mean, if you want, but there's nothing wrong. And I think that there's a tremendous value with just showing up and then sharing what's in your heart. without any preparation, without any scripting, is just is the same, perhaps is the same process that we do when we journal. I mean, when we journal, we are just transposing into the page what's inside of us. I mean, there's no sometimes filter. I mean, we don't go through any filters as, oh my goodness, this may not sound too good on the paper. No, 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 no. It's just as sometimes, I mean, and you heard him, as Paul Martinelli used to say, or says, it's just whatever it comes through you, it goes into the page, because that is coming from the source. Whatever, I mean, resonates with you. I mean, God, infinite intelligence, divine mind, but whatever is flowing from source through you, it ends on the paper. And that's exactly when sometimes, I mean, we show up, I mean, for a Facebook Live, and we don't have any papers or anything, but it's just something that source is forcing us to bring it out and to share it with others. And some people are going to love it and resonate with it, and some others, they're just going to hate it or not liking. And that's fine. That's okay. Right. Because there's 7+ billion people in the planet. We are not supposed to resonate with all of them.
Right. And as you were sharing that, I mean, it when some of the things going on with leadership right now is a lot of people want leaders that are authentic and transparent. In those moments where I'm around the street, that's my authentic and transparent moments.
Now, without getting political, because I mean, this is not a political thing, but what is your opinion? I mean, do you think that when we look at the world as a whole, not just the US, but the world as a whole, do you think that there is a lack of authentic and true and servant leadership?
A lack of it in the world. Well, I'll say this. If there is, they're coming out now. I think this is a season where the next generation of great leaders are being birthed. They are being birthed. They're being going through the crucibles, and they're rising to the top. So I think the great leaders are coming. We've got some really great leadership now. I think that there needs to be some serious growth in the servant leader model.
Yeah,
for sure. Because, there's still that position idea of authority. That if I come from a military mindset, and we were told that, I can still remember my boss playing this game with me. He told me to do something. And I asked him, I wasn't arguing with him or anything. I just wanted to learn. I'd say, his name was Sergeant. I said, Sergeant, I'm not arguing with you. Why are we doing this? Because I wanted to learn. I didn't want to just do it. I wanted to learn why I was doing it so I could understand the purpose behind it.
That's right.
And I remember him saying this. He said, Air Force Reg 3-2 says you need to do that. And I thought, Air Force Reg 3-2? I didn't know we had a reg of 3-2 because my job was in a different series number. And I thought, oh, great, something for me to study. And he saw my eyes light up, and then he said this. He said, I've got 3 stripes, and you have 2. And I'm like, okay. So the whole idea was I outrank you. Rank has its privileges. Do what I say.
That's exactly right.
And that's kind of a mindset of some of the leaders in that rank-heavy structure. Not all of them.
Yeah.
But I still see that on the outside. Now that I'm on the outside, if you will, there's still people that think, well, my title is executive director. My title is CEO. My title is this. My title is this. You have to do what I say. Like you said, that's positional leadership. Congratulations. You got that title because you've been seeing your potential. Your potential's there. You've been invited to the table. You've got skill sets and abilities and influence that can make a difference.
That's right.
And it all starts with serving others. The great leaders are the ones who serve others.
That's exactly right. Now, before we actually came live, I mean, we were just talking and bouncing things, I mean, to each other, and you mentioned something that I think that is worth mentioning. You talked about the idea and the need right now of equipping equipping.
Yeah.
And I want you to expand that. I mean, the whole concept of equipping others. I mean, to begin to develop others and equip others, so those others can keep equipping, and it becomes like a domino effect.
Yes. In the context of we're talking about church, and
Mhm.
one of the areas in churches, most of us show up at a service, and the pastor gives a message, and we're in that mindset, and we do this once a week, every week. And so the pastor is serving the people. And so what I'm seeing in this season is so look at it as the pastor, or fill in the blank with the leader. They're cooking a great meal, and they're serving you this amazing meal. These leaders are serving you great meals. And we, people in a congregation or in your organization, wherever, we're enjoying the meal. We're being served.
Yeah.
We're eating the meal provided to us.
Yeah.
This is a season where leadership needs to teach people, equip people with the ingredients and how to cook their own meals.
That's exactly right. Like I said, that is a great analogy. And in addition to that, is people, I mean, whether it is in church, and you have the pastor given that meal and that nutrition to the people sitting on the pews, and to the
Mhm.
listeners. Or even if you go to a conference, and there's the speaker that is providing to the listeners that banquet of nutritious foods.
Mhm.
But the thing is this: not only whether in the church context, or in a seminar or business, when you listened to that, to that banquet, to that nutritious meal, is not only the intellectual part of it, but you have to be able to digest it,
Mhm.
to eat it, digest it, and then begin applying the things that you need in your life that are going to take you to the next level. Because if you just go, it's like, you know, if you go to the arena, and instead of just jumping into the arena and begin playing as an active player, or as a gladiator, but you sit on the bleachers,
Mhm.
then you're not playing the game. You're being a passive spectator. And for your life to change and to be transformed, not only you have to be a spectator and a listener of nutritious food, but you have to be able to eat it, digest it, and apply it.
Yes, and it's imperative on both the leader and the crowd, so to speak, the people in the pews. People in the pews during this season, this is that time for them to reevaluate. What am
Yeah.
I doing here?
Yeah. Mhm.
And for the leader, while everything rises and falls with leadership, I don't expect my pastor to be an expert in business, but I do expect him to know who they are in the congregation,
Sure.
build that relationship with them and pour into them so they can pour into others.
That's right. Yeah.
It's building those relationships. Again, it goes back to building the relationships, knowing the people, what do they need, but also the leader sometimes got to be tough and say, okay, it's time for you to cook your own meal. Here's how it's going to be. This is how we're going to do it. Here's your ingredients, and providing them tools and resources, but also providing them application. There's some folks that are being fed steak, but they ain't ready for steak. They're still they're not ready for steak.
That's right.
They're still having milk, so to speak.
That's
And you got to
right.
be able to recognize that. But the person in the pew who only wants milk and is getting served meat, at some point, they got to let go of the bottle, let go of the cup of milk, and start tasting the meat and moving forward with those little bites here and there and doing something with it. It's not just a head game. It's just not head knowledge, so to speak. You got to start living it out. That's where the application piece comes in.
That's exactly right, and that's the whole journey through maturity. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's and different people are at different stages in maturity, but I mean, sometimes the sad thing to see is that you are at the milk level of
Mhm.
maturity. Um, and but you don't aspire to get to the meat and potatoes level of maturity. You feel that drinking milk is fine. Hey, I mean, if I could just drink milk, I mean, for the rest of my life, I mean, that would be great. I mean, no problems. But that is then it gets into the other area that is your comfort zone. That is your bubble of comfort. I mean, where nothing happens. I mean, you keep drinking milk and milk and milk, and then
Granddaughter showed up.
I mean, that's right. You turn 65 years old and you're still a baby because
Yeah.
you haven't grown. So at one point is getting out of that comfort zone and then leaving milk on the side and begin to enjoy and developing your gut to accept meat and potatoes as well.
Yes, and you said comfort zone. It's also if you stay in milk for the rest of your life, you're no longer comfortable. You're in your complacency zone.
That's which is a very dangerous zone to be, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the difference between comfort and complacency, you know, we're told to be content in all things. But contentment and complacency, there's a fine line there.
That's, I think, yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, I think that when it comes to complacent, is I am comfortable, but I don't have any intention of getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
made a decision to stay complacent, and that's fine with me. And when I say to people, listen, if you meet someone and you know that that person um, uh, is at a point that they said, okay, I got to this point in my journey and I don't need to learn anything else,
Mm-hmm.
then that is a relationship that you need to get out as quickly as possible, because that person, I mean, if that person thinks that there's nothing else to learn, then that's not a good place to be, or a good association to have.
Mm.
Because we are always, up until we are put horizontal on a wooden box, up until that moment, there's always time to keep learning. And I think that you said it.
Mm.
I think that another characteristic of great leadership is the ability, or the desire for someone to being a perpetual learner and a perpetual explorer. I mean, you have to keep exploring things, just like kids. I mean, when you're a kid, you are exploring all the time. Now, in that exploration, you get into trouble many times, but
Yes.
but you keep exploring. But when we grow and we become adults, it's like all exploration stops because we are fearful of making a mistake or messing up or failing, and and it is the result of making mistakes that we are keep on learning.
Yes, and as adults, we also fear losing ground that we've made. There's that fear of if I take this chance, I'm going to lose everything, and that's not true. Now, part of my job in my Air Force career was a consultant.
Okay.
It's the best way to describe it.
Uh-huh.
I was the middleman between commanders who needed more people to do their mission. My job was to explore that and be a consultant in that area. And very rarely, you've got your worst case scenarios, um, least likely to happen, most likely to happen, and then you got this middle that usually is the average. On average, this happens, but most of us, that we'll call it 80%. The worst case scenario is maybe 10%,
Yeah.
and best case scenario is 10%. But we tend to spend our times in that 20% instead of the reality of the 80% defining reality.
That's right.
And in order to grow to that 10% best case scenario, you've got to define what that is, but then you've got to take the step out of that to get there.
Yeah, exactly. So, the other thing before we go to the last, I mean, because I told you before, I didn't want to get you cold turkey, that I was going to ask you a couple of questions. But before we do that, there's another thing that you used to do. I think that on Sundays, which is steel toe. What, I mean, remind me of that.
Yes, hashtag steel toes required quote of the week. Oh, yes. You're a speaker, Alejandro. I remember hearing speakers say all the time, what I'm about to say is going to step on your toes. And so I got the idea that whenever I saw quotes out there that impacted me, I'd respond hashtag steel toes required, because ouch, that hurt. And so I would do a weekly quote and share some lessons I learned from that quote. And I did that for a couple of years. I haven't done that probably in a year.
Okay.
But I'm in discussions with some folks that are going to help me out. And I'm looking at taking those and turn them into a podcast, or I'm going to do something with those because I really enjoyed those. It was a lot of fun, and I'm still gathering quotes. But yeah.
Excellent. That's good. You see, this is for all of you, that when I talk to an influencer, I do my homework. I really do a little bit of research on the influencers that I have with me. But listen, Dennis, before we wrap this up, as I always do with all of my guests, I want to ask you two questions. And the first one is this: what is, for you, what is success?
Great question. In my journal, I write in the front page, the front cover, I transfer from one journal to the other. I transfer, like, what my strengths are, my word of the year, all of those type of things. And one of the other things that I do is my definition of success.
Oh,
and so here it is. This is my definition of success.
sure.
Success is pursuing and attaining a dream or calling without compromising your conviction, character, or values, to impact as many people as possible to fulfill their dreams, purpose, or calling.
Wow. Now, it's good that this is recorded, because I didn't take note, but I'm going to re-listen to that, and I'm going to write it down, because that is, this is the beauty, that that's one of the things, that success is not something that it has an international definition, or for every single person. I'm sure that there are over 7 billion definitions of the word success, because for every person living on this planet right now, there is a definition of success to them personally, what resonates with them as success. For someone, it could be, I have 2 houses and that is success for me. Okay, well, that's fine. But for others, it could be something a little bit deeper or much deeper. Whatever it is. So success is a very personal thing. Okay. And the second question is, for Dennis LaRue, what does it mean to live a limitless life?
I love that question. And as I was thinking about that, for me, living a limitless life, in order to have a limitless life, I need to understand that there are boundaries in our lives. I need to understand when a boundary on my growth through a limitless life, when there is a limit in front of me, is it a limit to protect me, or is it a limit that is trying to prevent me from reaching the next tier of defining my success, of reaching that next level of growth, achieving that next goal? Is that limit in front of me to prevent me from going in a direction I'm not supposed to go? Or is it one that is trying to prevent me from going where I'm supposed to go? So that requires wisdom. It requires discernment. It requires perseverance and self-control. And it goes back to that self-reflection, that internal, and it's also making sure that I know the direction I want to go. If you have a limitless life and don't know where you're going, you're doing this. You're doing circles.
you're spinning around, and it's like, I mean, if you don't know where you're going, and you want to live a limitless life, but you don't know what the destination is like I said, when sometimes, I mean, I used to go to the gym and step on a treadmill. You could be on a treadmill and you can be sweating your head off, and after 2 hours of being on a treadmill, you ask yourself, where have you gone? And you have not gone anywhere, because you are on the same place, even though you thought that you spent all that energy and so forth, but you are in the same place that you started with. And that is people, I mean, that they want to live a limitless life, but there is no destination and there is no direction, and they're just spinning in the treadmill and they're going absolutely nowhere.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that illustration because I'm a runner. And so I don't like running on treadmills for the very reason you described. You do a whole lot of work, but the scenery doesn't change. You're in the same place. And, thinking through this from a limitless life is you have to define the life that you want. So, to make this practical for a moment, I love giving people, it's about equipping.
Sure, that's right.
And one of the greatest tools given to me to help me in this area was, if you were to die, what would people say about you? We've heard John talk about that. Well, I took it one step further. Write your obituary. Now that sounds morbid, but write your obituary. If the news were reporting your death, what would be said? If usually a family member submits that. So let's put it this way. It's your death, and your family members are writing the story of your life. What would they write? In this case, write it for them, because that's going to be your guide to living a limitless life.
As a matter of fact, I mean, now that you mentioned that, I don't know. I mean, if you heard, I don't know if there was a book or not, but you know that there are two dates in a person's life. I mean, it's the date that you were born, and eventually, for everyone, there's going to be a date
Mhm.
that we are going to die. We don't know when that date is, but there's going to be a date. But you know, those dates are really not important. What is important is the dash
Yes,
in the middle.
that's right.
Is that dash in the middle, because that represents all the years that you have lived between your birth and your death. And then is, what are you doing, or what are we doing in that dash? And
Yes,
I think that that is important. Even, I mean, in writing that obituary, is what transpired in that, during that dash.
exactly. Define the dash. The obituary defines the dash.
That's right. It just defines that dash. Um, Dennis LaRue. I mean, I cannot tell you. Um, what a great pleasure it's been to me to spend this time. You know, I was saying to someone earlier on, Albert Einstein, who was a great scientist, but he was also a great thinker, a great philosopher when it came to personal growth and leadership and other areas. Well, he said that, of course, time is relative. You know, time is relative. And today, it's another great demonstration that time is relative, because we spend over an hour with you. And to me, it just looked like it was only 20 seconds.
Wow.
So that is the idea that time is relative. When you are in the company of someone and you're just talking, and you are enjoying the moment and the here and now, time flies away, and you just, I mean, you don't even know where he went.
Oh, that's so good, Alejandro. I pray it was valuable time for sure, and time well spent. And for those listening, what's so important is you know defining the dash was huge, but just sitting back now and reflecting. What was your biggest takeaway, and how can you then use that to impact those around you? Because we're not to be sponges and absorbing all this wisdom and knowledge and everything that we've got around us.
Yeah.
We're to take that sponge and wring it and give it to others. Wring it on the plants that are around you, the seeds that are around you, to help them to grow, and pass it on, and then keep refilling that sponge and keep doing that.
That's, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. Yes, it's um, when good things happen to us, we cannot be stingy.
That's right.
We have to be, and we got back to what John Maxwell says. We are supposed to be flowing rivers and not just reservoirs. You know, because a reservoir becomes a stagnant, stingy, and stinky and smelly. But you never find that with a flowing river, because a flowing river keeps receiving and giving it away and pass it along. So I truly enjoyed, and it was a privilege. It was an honor. I mean, that you said yes, I mean, to this. I hope it will not be. It certainly is the first one, but certainly I hope that it will not be the last one. And I cannot be happier. I mean, to have spent this time with you, and examining your life and your experience and your wisdom. Thank you. You added so much value to me, and hopefully to all of the people who are going to watch this episode.
No, Alejandro, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I was humbled for you to ask me to be here. And
No,
so I enjoyed the conversation. It was so much fun. We definitely have to do this again. Definitely.
Yes, definitely. And so for all of you, until the next time, I just want to remind you, as I always do, to live every moment. Hey, live every moment. Remember what Dennis says. Just wring that and live it. Squeeze every drop of juice out of that orange, and live every moment. Be resilient, and also be kind, be passionate, be intentional, and be well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dennis. All the very best. Take care. Have a great rest of the day and weekend, my friend.
You too, Alejandro. Blessings, my friends.
Okay, bye-bye.